Hello and shalom to everyone. I am Rabbi Howard Wolk. I'm community chaplain with Jewish Family Service of Dallas. I work closely with Faith Presbyterian Hospice. I'm flattered that each month they ask me to share a message with you. This message is being recorded and will be sent out just before the start of the Jewish high holidays, which begin on September 19. We begin with Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. On the Hebrew calendar, it will be the year 5781. And the Jewish New Year marks the anniversary of the creation of Adam and Eve. We celebrate the start of humanity. That's how we begin marking our time. 5781, since the Bible tells us in Genesis about the creation of Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve, who were not Jewish, they were human beings, the first creations of God, imbued with a soul, with a spirit. And God teaches us a very important lesson literally at the beginning. God creates a world filled with everything, filled with mountains and rivers and vegetation and animals. And comes the most important creation, human beings. God does not fill the world with people, but rather creates one man and one woman and says to them, okay, be fruitful and multiply. You get it going. Why didn't God create a world filled with people? Certainly the Almighty could have done that. Well, one of the reasons is to teach us the importance of each individual life. From a Jewish perspective, from a biblical perspective, every human life is sanctified, and every human being is precious. And so had we been created in mass numbers, our approach would be human life cannot be very precious if God, so to speak, churns human beings out conveyor belt style. Instead, one man, one woman, to teach us the awesome sanctity of every individual life. And so the Jewish New Year emphasizes this idea. And we believe that starting with Rosh Hashanah and culminating 10 days later with Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, God judges every human being. Each person has a one-to-one relationship with God. Now, as we head toward the beginning of this new year, certainly I would say one of the feelings that has filled our homes, our communities for many months is one of pessimism. People are down, and are down, feeling down for good reason. The pandemic, economic reverses, people out of work, an increase in lack of marriage, happiness because of all these circumstances. One of the important messages of the Jewish faith and every Jewish New Year, but especially this one, is one of optimism. That we have to be optimistic. We have to consider the many blessings that God has showered upon us, even in the face of difficulty, individual difficulty, family difficulty, and the idea of human beings being connected by God through creation underscores what we've been going through in terms of the pandemic. No human being is immune. No country is immune. So I think our approach has to be one of optimism, to be hopeful that things will get better, things will improve, difficulties that children have returning or not returning to school. Eventually, we will get back to something more approaching normalcy. And I want to share with you a story that I think underscores this important idea of being optimistic and being hopeful. A man wrote this a number of years ago. I came across it on the internet. He's writing about his friend Michael. And he says, Michael is the kind of person you love to hate. He's always in a good mood. You ask him, how are you, Michael? He say, oh, I'm great. If I would be any better, I'd have to be twins. He was a natural motivator. In his position at work, if people would come to him to complain, he'd always look at the positive side. And the fellow writing the stories asked him, "How do you function every day in such a positive manner?" And Michael says, "Well, when I wake up every morning, I just say to myself, I have a decision to make. I can approach this day in a good mood or a bad mood. I choose a good mood. And if something bad happens, I say to myself, I can choose to be a victim or I can choose to learn from the experience." And that's how Michael approached a life on a daily basis. Well, he and his friend kind of drifted apart. His friend moved to another city, and then he heard that Michael had had a terrible accident. He fell some 60 feet from a communications tower. He was required to have 18 hours of surgery, weeks of intensive care, and finally, when he was released from the hospital, Michael had rods placed in his back. When the fellow saw Michael about 6 months later, he said to Michael, "How are you feeling?" He says, "I'm feeling great. If I were any better, I'd be twins. Do you want to see my scars?" And the friend said, "No, I don't want to see your wounds, but tell me, what were you thinking when the accident occurred?" So Michael said, "When I fell 60 feet to the ground, the first thought that went through my head was my soon-to-be-born daughter. And as I lay on the ground, I remembered that I had two choices. I could choose to live or I could choose to die. I chose to live. Weren't you scared? Did you lose consciousness?" So Michael said, when the paramedics got to me, they were great. They kept telling me I'd be fine. However, when they wheeled me into the emergency room, I saw the expressions of the nurses and the doctors, and I got really scared. I saw in their eyes that they were looking at me like I was a dead man, and I needed to take action. "Well, what did you do?" "Well," Michael said, "there was one big burly nurse who kept shouting questions at me. She asked if I was allergic to anything. Yes, I replied. The doctors and nurses stopped their work as they waited to hear my reply. I took a deep breath and yelled, 'Yes, I'm allergic to gravity.' Over their laughter, I told them, 'I am choosing to live. Please operate on me as if I am alive and not dead.' Michael lived through the efforts of his doctors and nurses, but also because of his amazing positive attitude. No matter the difficulty he was going through, he remained positive. Attitude, after all, is everything. After all, today is the tomorrow that you worried about yesterday. So want to wish everyone a happy and healthy new year, that the new year will be one of health and happiness and inner contentment and success for us and for the entire world. Thank you very much for your attention. Shana Tova. Happy New Year.